At exactly 2:03 a.m., my security camera caught Brent Maddox crouched beneath my daughter's bedroom window, snapping photos with a telephoto lens and flipping through a folder labeled Target Assessment, Monroe. That's when I knew this wasn't about HOA violations or power trips. They were planning to take my little girl. What they didn't know was, I wasn't just a retired U.S. Marshal, I was the wrong father to mess with. If someone had told me that moving to a pristine gated community would reopen the chapters of my past I tried to bury, I'd have told them to lay off the Netflix thrillers. But here I am, standing at the edge of my new driveway in Stone Hollow Estates, watching my daughter Zara skip toward the front door of our fresh start, and every instinct in my ex-U.S. Marshal bones is already buzzing. The lawns are immaculate. The sidewalks pressure-washed to a sparkle. And the homes? Magazine perfect, colonial facades with just enough custom charm to give each one a name like Oak Haven or Whispering Pines. It should have felt peaceful. It didn't. We'd moved here 3 weeks ago, leaving behind the noise and ghosts of our old town in Virginia, trying to outrun the shadow that cancer left behind when it took her mother. Zara was only 11, but sometimes I swear she carries more wisdom in those big hazel eyes than some agents I served with. Stone Hollow promised quiet streets, good schools, and a community that, on paper, looked as safe as a church picnic. But something about this place felt rehearsed. Polished to perfection, and hollow underneath. I spotted our welcome committee on day 2. Claudia Whitmore, president of the HOA, was the kind of woman you'd expect to see behind a podium or in a courtroom drama. Early 50s, manicured to within an inch of her life, pearls tight around her neck like a leash of authority. She showed up with a bottle of Chardonnay and a clipboard. The smile never reached her eyes. "Mr. Monroe," she said with the tone of someone who already knew everything about you. "Retired Marshal, correct?" I nodded slowly. "And your daughter, what a little gem. You must be doing a remarkable job all by yourself. Quite the challenge, I'm sure." I didn't like the way she said it. Like she was poking at something just beneath the surface. I offered a tight smile, took the bottle, and thanked her. She spent the next 15 minutes asking seemingly friendly questions that felt more like a security clearance interview. Where did I work now? Did I travel often? Was Zara in after-school care? We like to keep the community tight-knit, she added, flipping a page on her clipboard. Know who's coming and going. Keeps everyone safe. Right. Safety. Funny word coming from someone who looked like she could run a corporate espionage ring from her sunroom. That night, as Zara helped me unpack her books into her room, she glanced at me with her knowing little smirk. She was fake nice, she said simply. What do you mean? I asked, already knowing the answer. Like when someone gives you a compliment but really they're just looking at your shoes. I laughed. You're getting too sharp, you know that? Mom used to say you could smell trouble before it knocked, she shrugged. Is your nose working yet? Truth was, it was. By the end of the week, I tallied a list of things that didn't sit right. The HOA fees were astronomical, nearly triple the average for the area. And yet, there were entire blocks of homes that sat empty. For sale signs that looked like they were planted yesterday, fresh paint, untouched lawns, not a soul in sight. And then there were the neighbors. Smiling but silent. Pleasant but guarded. They waved, but always from a distance, like they were afraid to say the wrong thing where someone might hear. The tension reminded me of towns overseas where local leaders operated under fear, and no one dared speak without glancing over their shoulder first. It all came to a head on Saturday when Zara came home with a colorful brochure in her backpack, Junior HOA Ambassadors, a leadership club just for kids. On the surface, it looked innocent enough, arts and crafts, community service, team-building games. But I knew bait when I saw it. She said it's gonna be fun, Zara said as she handed me a chocolate chip cookie she got from the meeting's preview day. They asked us about our houses. Like whose? Home during the day. Who works late? Stuff like that. I froze mid-bite. Wait, they asked that? Yeah, she said, frowning. And Mrs. Whitmore told us not to mention it to parents. Said it was part of a secret surprise. The cookie turned to ash in my mouth. Did anything else happen? Zara hesitated. There was a binder. It had maps. And she showed me something called the Stone Plan. She said I'd learn more once I'm in the club. That night, after I tucked Zara in, I sat alone in my study with the blinds drawn and an open laptop glowing with county records. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. Over the next few hours, I uncovered property transfers that made my stomach drop. In the last 8 months, 12 homes in our subdivision had sold for significantly under market value. In every case, the previous owners were either widowed, elderly, or single parents, and all had moved under pressure, citing unresolvable HOA conflicts. This wasn't mismanagement. This was a targeted campaign. The HOA was bleeding vulnerable residents dry with manufactured violations and outrageous fines, and then swooping in to buy their homes at a discount. I'd seen this tactic before, in war zones. Find the weak points. Apply pressure. Force surrender. Only this wasn't a battlefield. It was a cul-de-sac. The next day, I got confirmation I wasn't the only one who'd noticed. Linda Torres, our next-door neighbor, invited me over for tea. Late 60s, soft-spoken, eyes full of a grief I recognized too well. Her husband, she told me, had died last year. A stroke, brought on, she believed, by the stress of battling the HOA. They find us for everything, she said, clutching a teacup like a lifeline. Wrong mailbox color. Our birdbath was too whimsical. They even claimed our garden gnome was a violation of the community aesthetic. I nearly laughed, until she opened a drawer and handed me a stack of letters. Fines, demands, threats. One for over $900. For improper curtain. Hughes. We were going to fight it, she said softly. My husband started investigating. He found things. Connections. Then, things started happening. Flat tires. Our dog got sick. Strange men parked outside for hours. She glanced toward her window. This place is beautiful. But it's not safe. Not really. I walked home with the letters in hand, my mind racing. Zara was right. Her instincts were dead on. And mine? They were screaming now. Claudia Whitmore wasn't running a homeowners association. She was running a well-oiled operation, and she'd just made the mistake of targeting the wrong family. I wasn't just a widowed dad trying to rebuild. I was a retired marshal trained to hunt people who hid behind false authority. And someone had just tried to recruit my daughter into their scheme. Game on, Claudia. Game on. It started with a sound. A soft click at 2:03 a.m., barely audible beneath the low hum of the baby monitor I still kept in Zara's room out of habit. I'd fallen asleep at my desk, surveillance feeds flickering across 4 monitors, but that sound snapped me upright. Years of stakeouts and sting ops had trained me to recognize when quiet wasn't just quiet, it was wrong. I rewound the camera footage. There, just at the edge of our yard, stood a man. Stocky build. Tactical boots. Hooded jacket. He wasn't just casing the house. He was raising a camera with a telephoto lens, pointing it directly at Zara's window. My blood ran cold. He held a thick folder under one arm, its tab visible in the camera's night vision as he flipped through papers. My breath caught when I zoomed in. Labeled in block letters, Target Assessment, Monroe. This wasn't random intimidation anymore. This was reconnaissance. These people had crossed a line. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I upgraded every inch of security around the house, perimeter alarms, pressure sensors, motion-activated lights. By sunrise, I'd activated my old contact chain from the Marshal Service. Quiet favors. Untraceable gear. Meanwhile, Zara was waking up as if it were any normal day, stretching, yawning, asking if we had eggs. We do, I said with a smile, scrambling breakfast like nothing had happened. But my mind was already drafting escape routes, backup plans, safe house options. Over toast, I turned her morning routine into a game. If someone tried to grab her, what would she do? Run, yell, tell, she remembered. But now I added a new trick, a tap pattern on her shoe's heel. 3 taps sent a silent distress signal to an app on my phone. A remnant from a mission overseas. She thought it was cool. Like secret agent stuff, she giggled. I just nodded, heart heavy. I didn't want my daughter to live like this. But I'd rather she live. Later that day, Linda came over clutching a folder wrapped in a scarf. Her face was pale. They know you're not going to fold, she whispered. They'll come harder now. She laid the folder on my kitchen table and opened it. Inside were decades of HOA financial records, scanned fines, forged signatures, and photos of Claudia meeting with city zoning officials and developers in quiet cafes. My husband gathered all this, Linda said. He was building a case. Then, he just broke. They made him look unstable. Said he was paranoid. Got the neighborhood to turn on him. 2 months later, he stopped eating. One day, he walked out into the woods and never came back. She trembled. I should have done something sooner. But I was scared. I covered her hand with mine. You're doing something now. That night, I met with Officer Caleb Rios at a gas station 30 minutes outside the city. Late 30s, sharp eyes, calm voice. I liked him immediately. I've heard whispers about Stone Hollow, he said, glancing around before handing me his card. Complaints vanish. Victims move out before follow-ups. Some cases never get logged. But we're not all bought, Monroe. I told him everything, carefully, measuredly. I didn't hand over Linda's evidence yet. Trust is earned. Look, Rios said. I've got a buddy in state police. If this blows wide, he'll want in. But you need hard proof. No hearsay. No redacted documents. Something irrefutable. I nodded. Working on it. The next day, another unexpected ally appeared, Tina Wu, the HOA's lead accountant. She slipped a flash drive into my mailbox hidden in a granola bar box. I'd only spoken to her once, but apparently she'd seen enough. The files she sent me were damning: money laundering trails, wire transfers, shell companies, all linking Claudia and her enforcers to a criminal network. A note accompanied the drive: I want out. I'll help. But if they know I talked, I'm dead. That evening, Zara came home with a slip about a junior leadership retreat happening that weekend. The same kids from the junior HOA program would be invited for a fun educational experience. Parental supervision not allowed. Zara shrugged. She said there'd be games and a prize. I smiled and kissed her forehead, but inside, my stomach flipped. This was it. The move. They were going to isolate her. And they thought I'd hand over everything in panic. They didn't know me at all. Friday night, I equipped Zara with the smallest tracking device I owned, fitted in the heel of her tennis shoe. Just a game, remember? I said. 3 taps and I come running. She nodded, wide-eyed but brave. I won't be scared, Daddy. Saturday morning, I dropped her off at the Stone Hollow Community Center. Claudia was waiting in a tailored suit and too slick smile. We'll take excellent care of her, Mr. Monroe. I forced a smile back. I know. Then I drove away, only to circle back, park 4 houses down, and track the signal. For the first 2 hours, Zara remained in the building. I waited. Then, just before noon, her signal began to move. Fast. Too fast. They weren't walking to the park. They were driving. I followed the dot on my screen through side roads and out past the edge of town. It stopped at an old warehouse that used to be a lumber facility. My heart pounded. I sent an encrypted ping to my old squad. 4 responded immediately. ETA 30 minutes, one of them texted. Eyes on your six. I approached on foot, slipping between tall grass and rusted dumpsters. Through a dirty window, I saw Zara tied to a chair, her face tense but calm. Claudia stood near her with Brent Maddox and two other goons. They were on phones, pacing. A few papers on the table. Then my phone vibrated. Unknown number. Bring the deed or lose your daughter. I dialed back and put the call on speaker, phone recording. Claudia's voice oozed false charm. David, such a shame it came to this. But surely you see this is just business. We need your lot. Your background made things complicated. You don't have to do this, I said, injecting fear into my tone. I'll bring the deed. Just don't hurt her. Smart man, she purred. Come alone. No police. One wrong move, and your daughter's school photos become her last. I kept her talking. She admitted to everything. The intimidation, the property grabs, the profits. We've made over 20 million flipping homes, she boasted. Military families are ideal targets. PTSD makes them unstable. Easy to paint as threats. And the widows? They're just grateful anyone's paying attention. My jaw clenched, but I forced calm. You're sick, I said. Maybe. But rich. And getting richer. You could join us, you know. A man like you would rise fast. I ended the call and texted my squad. We move in 5. Then I stepped into the warehouse holding a manila folder labeled deed. Brent frisked me, found nothing. Claudia smiled wide. I knew you were sensible. I asked to see Zara up close. Claudia nodded. Brent cut the ties. Zara ran into my arms. I hugged her tight, whispering, "Butterfly." She nodded once, ready. I faced Claudia. You want my house? Here. I tossed the fake deed on the table. But I recorded your call. Her face fell. You what? That phone call? Yeah, you confessed to RICO violations, kidnapping, real estate fraud. Probably even money laundering. Brent stepped forward. You're bluffing. Am I? I said, just as the side doors burst open and red laser dots danced on their chests. Tactical boots hit concrete. My old squad, fully geared and not in the mood for games. Brent lunged. I sidestepped and dropped him with a twist and elbow to the neck. Claudia tried to run. Zara tripped her. Oops, she said. I couldn't help it. I laughed. That's my girl. Sirens blared as state police and feds swarmed in. Claudia was screaming about lawyers and rights. One agent smiled. You'll have plenty of time to read those in prison. As zip cuffs snapped shut, I held Zara close, the adrenaline finally starting to wear off. You okay? I asked. I was scared. She admitted. But I remembered what you said. I stayed brave. I kissed her head. You did perfect. Behind us, officers read Miranda rights, bagged evidence, and took Brent and Claudia into custody. But I didn't watch them. I looked only at my daughter, the reason I'd fought, the reason I'd won. And the reason I would never, ever stop. The morning after the takedown at the warehouse, Stone Hollow Estates didn't just feel different, it felt like someone had lifted a weight from the air itself. The lawn still glistened with dew, the houses still stood in perfect symmetry, but for the first time since we moved in, I heard something I hadn't heard before, real laughter. Children playing in yards, neighbors talking without hushed voices, and front doors swinging open not out of suspicion, but out of relief. Claudia Whitmore, Brent Maddox, and the entire fake leadership ring had been loaded into federal vans under armed escort before sunrise. My team, the local police, and state agents worked through the night processing evidence, cross-referencing files, and interviewing every name Tina Wu and Linda Torres had provided. I stayed with Zara. She curled up next to me on the couch, wrapped in my old Marshall jacket, breathing slow and steady. She'd been brave, braver than any child should ever have to be, but I could tell the adrenaline was wearing off. Her voice was quiet when she asked, "Daddy, are they all gone?" I pulled her close. "They're not just gone, sweetheart. They're done. And they're never coming back." By Monday morning, national news outlets were already descending on Stone Hollow. The story had gone viral: retired U.S. Marshal and daughter dismantle corrupt HOA ring. And while the headlines made it sound like a movie, the fallout was anything but fiction. Claudia's confession, captured in crystal-clear audio, was enough to trigger a federal RICO investigation. Brent Maddox, facing decades behind bars, flipped within 48 hours. What he revealed blew the case wide open. The HOA wasn't just corrupt, it was a front for a national network called the Residential Equity Group. Their model was simple: infiltrate high-value communities through local HOA boards, target vulnerable homeowners with fines and harassment, then force them to sell cheap before flipping the properties to commercial developers. The syndicate operated in 11 states, had political connections stretching into city councils and zoning boards, and used everything from social pressure to psychological warfare to drive people out. Tina Wu's files confirmed it all: years of financial data, backroom payouts, wire transfers to offshore accounts. It turned out Claudia was just one of several managing agents working different neighborhoods. But Stone Hollow was their flagship project, their model community. And they'd lost it. David Monroe had become a name the syndicate would never forget. Officer Caleb Rios was promoted within days to lead a new joint task force between the state police and the FBI's Public Corruption Division. He personally delivered a commendation letter to my door. "You weren't paranoid," he said, shaking my hand. "You were dead on. And you saved more people than you know." Linda Torres was honored in a quiet ceremony that week. Her husband's evidence, dismissed for years as the ramblings of a broken man, was now the backbone of multiple indictments. I watched as she laid a photo of him at the new community center bulletin board, her eyes misty but proud. "He always said the truth would win," she whispered. "He just didn't live to see it." I knelt beside her. "He helped make this happen. And his name's going to be remembered for it." As for Zara, well, my daughter didn't just come out of this stronger. She came out of it shining. The FBI, moved by her bravery and the fact that her text message had kicked off the entire operation, issued her an honorary junior investigator badge. The State Board of Education reached out next, asking if Zara would be willing to appear in school safety training videos. She agreed, as long as it included a part where kids were taught never to keep secrets from their parents, even if the adult asking them seemed nice. Her exact words. The state legislature moved faster than anyone expected. Within 6 weeks, Zara's law was drafted, passed, and signed by the governor. It required transparency in all HOA financials, mandated third-party audits, and protected whistleblowers from retaliation. More importantly, it limited HOA power to fine or threaten homeowners without due process. Stone Hollow underwent a full transformation. The old HOA was dissolved and restructured from the ground up. Elections were held, and this time, the community turned out in droves. Linda Torres was unanimously voted in as the new HOA president. Her first act? Abolish every ridiculous rule on the books: curtain colors, lawn heights, bird bath shapes, all gone. In their place, she implemented a charter focused on community service, inclusion, and fairness. Residents who once avoided eye contact were now volunteering for neighborhood cleanup days. Potlucks sprang up on weekends. Front yards bloomed with color, not because they had to, but because people wanted to. Gnomes, flamingos, wind chimes, and one particularly bold family who installed a small Tyrannosaurus made entirely of succulents. The dinosaur stayed. The HOA voted to name it Reginald. I took a part-time consulting role with the FBI's Public Corruption Task Force. They said someone with my background, military, law enforcement, and lived experience, was exactly what they needed. I didn't take the desk job. Instead, I worked field cases across the country, identifying early warning signs in communities that mirrored Stone Hollow's story. I helped expose 3 more syndicate-linked HOAs in California, Texas, and Florida. But I never left home for long. Zara needed her dad. And this neighborhood, after everything, had become ours. We still hosted pizza nights on Fridays. The first one after Claudia's arrest turned into an unofficial community reunion. Families we hadn't seen in weeks, some who'd been ready to flee, came out, brought desserts, shared stories. That night, Zara tugged at my sleeve. "Dad," she said, looking around at the kids laughing. And the adults clinking soda cans, maybe our mission wasn't just saving our house. Maybe it's about teaching people they don't have to be afraid. I pulled her close. That's the best mission I've ever had. We stood under the string lights as someone rolled out a karaoke machine. Linda tried to sing Bon Jovi. It was awful. It was perfect. The news moved on, as it always does. The spotlight faded. But the ripples of what we'd done didn't. Across the country, homeowners began organizing. City councils started questioning HOA budgets. State attorneys general launched investigations. Zara's law became a template for other states. The residential equity group collapsed under the weight of indictments. Several of its board members were sentenced to federal prison. Claudia received 25 years. Brent got 15 after cooperating, but not before publicly apologizing to Zara in court. She didn't respond. Some people don't deserve a reply. And Stone Hollow? It won national recognition from the Neighborhood Alliance Forbes Best Community Turnaround. The plaque hangs in the new community center, renamed Torres Hall. But my favorite part isn't the award. It's the mural outside, a painted garden of gnomes, birds, and dinosaurs under a banner that reads "Home means everyone belongs." Sometimes, I still sit on the porch and look out over the street. Watch Zara ride her bike, watchdog trotting beside her, neighbors waving as they pass. And I think about how close we came to losing it all. About how monsters can hide behind smiles and bylaws. But I also think about how one message, one child's bravery, and one parent's refusal to back down can change everything. So if you're reading this and you feel that something's wrong in your own backyard, don't ignore it. Ask questions. Pay attention. Protect your people. And remember, you don't have to face it alone. Because sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't fear. It's community. And once that wakes up, there's no stopping it. As the author of The Castle and the Oak Tree, if there's one truth this story lays bare, it's this: evil doesn't always wear a mask or come through the front door yelling. Sometimes, it smiles. It dresses in suits, hides behind rules, and uses the illusion of order to slowly dismantle everything good. But in the face of that kind of darkness, it isn't rage or revenge that brings the light, it's courage, awareness, and the power of community. David Monroe wasn't a superhero. He was a father grieving the loss of his wife, trying to raise a daughter in peace. But when evil touched what mattered most to him, his child, his neighbors, his home, he stood up. He didn't wait for someone else to take charge. He listened to his instincts, followed the trail, and refused to be silenced. His story reminds us that the ordinary can become extraordinary when we choose to speak up instead of look away. And let's talk about Zara. An 11-year-old girl with enough wisdom and bravery to send a text that changed everything. She trusted her gut. She spoke when something felt wrong. That's not just brave, it's heroic. Her story teaches us that kids are smarter than we think, and we need to empower them to recognize danger, ask questions, and know that their voice matters. So here's my advice to you, dear listener. Pay attention. If something feels off in your neighborhood, don't brush it off. Ask questions. Dig deeper. Trust your instincts. Like David and Zara, sometimes your gut knows what your eyes haven't seen yet. Talk to your neighbors. There is strength in community. Predators thrive in silence, don't give it to them. Teach your children. Give them tools to protect themselves. Encourage them to speak up. Make sure they know they can always come to you. And above all, don't underestimate your power. Whether you're a veteran, a single parent, a retiree, or just someone trying to get by, your voice can change everything. Your actions matter. To all of you who've taken the time to listen to this story on US Daily Story, thank you. This channel exists because we believe stories like this, true or inspired by truth, have the power to wake us up, bring us together, and remind us what really matters. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think a little differently about the world around you, I hope you'll share it. Not for views, but for impact. From all of us at US Daily Story, thank you for being part of this community. Stay aware. Stay kind. And never forget, when good people stand together, no darkness can win for long.